Well, hello there, everyone. He is me face. How's it going? It's a payroll update for 2022. I wanted to talk to everyone about the updates and the work that have been done on the 2022 payroll and Excel program. So I have dozens of people that have subscribed to the lifetime payroll and Excel subscription. And this is the first major update I'm sending out. So over the last decade, really, developing this file, but especially the last few years and opening this thing up to all 50 states and a bunch of other different additions and types of information that you might have or might need as any type of business. This file is basically becoming a resource that logs a lot of current tax information and just helps you simulate and run a business and have employees in any of the 50 states and District of Columbia in the U.S. So what I'm going to do here is quickly go through how fast it is to put in information and then also explain a little bit about each sheet because I'm getting limited questions about how to add things, change things, and we can kind of quickly go over what those general questions are and I'll explain how to do that. So basically, if you're a small business and you need a payroll system where you can understand what you owe and when you need to file your reports, we're going to get through that in today's video from start to finish. And also, you can subscribe. It's $199 and you get a subscription for life, meaning you can download this file at any time. Just email me because I'm always working on it. You can download a current version and continue to use it. I'll be continually updating it. As long as I am around to do this work, I will be doing it. So let's talk about what's going on right now. You have an employee, right? What's the employee's name, right? Let's see here. You do not have to put the Social Security number in here, but it's helpful to log. I'd recommend not putting it in here if you're going to be sending this file out anywhere. Don't use it. You don't need to use the Social Security number. Don't worry. Get your employee to fill out a newer W-4, which means a W-4 from 2020 or later, not an old one. So this question asks you here in column F. Really, you should skip to column F and say, does this person fill out a current W-4? And the answer should be yes. And you should be getting them to fill those out. And the current W-4 questions end up being over here. So if you're in the middle of looking at people's W-4s, you would say, well, what is their filing status on the W-4? You would choose it. Did they put anything under the other income column? Did they put anything under the deductions column? The dependence amount is in thousands. It's not like the old W-4 where you put a number of deductions in. It's a $1,000 amount. So you need whatever it says. It could be, I think it's $2,000 each dependent or whatever it says on there. And did they check the box to see for dual income or not? That matters as well. So you have to answer those questions when they have a new W-4, but that's life, and they should fill out new W-4s. Are they married? Yes or no? What state are they in? Okay? You get to type the state. Here's another thing. This file is so incredible and has so many things that you would not believe everything that is in one Excel file here. I mean, you're talking every state's tax and municipal codes that were available easily. It's not everything, obviously, because there are local ordinances and different types of performance artist taxes and all kinds of things that I'm actually adding to it in the infinite search to have every type of tax in here that could be applicable. But what's in here now is still very, very extensive. You get to choose the state up here under the state tax title. So whatever state you choose, it's going to tell you what things you need to gather from what that state might ask. If you're in Arizona, for example, you would put Arizona here, and it would tell you need to choose whatever the withholding election amount is right here. I mean, it's so super extensive that no matter what state you're working at, the titles are related to this state up here. That's what comes up here, but the actual what they need to fill in is related to this. A bunch of different things will change. It will ask for filing status or not, depending on which state it is. It's just totally dynamic and fun almost to fill it out because it lets you know by things showing up in red if they need to be filled in after you put any information in. So we're just going to work in Virginia for the moment Do they have any allowances on the Virginia 4? Yes or no? Blind exemptions? Not yet. Thank goodness. And if there's a local or county code, it'll show up here. For example, one of the states that has a county code, I think, is Ohio. Yeah, it asks for one. And then you get to choose. And these are supposed to be right, but Ohio counties tend to change their tax frequently, and that's something we need to keep an eye on, because sometimes these will change by slight percentage points. All right? So you've got all these things that you can answer and enter in. I can't go through every single simulation, but that's basically what you need. And then you have some extra personal information if you want to grab, to put on their pay stubs, addresses, and things like that. And then we have PTO balances that are added in. I won't get into that in depth because I think I've done a video about PTO previously. But you got all that information in, right? Well, there you go. You've got an employee. Now you can start going to town and entering in that employee's information. You go to the daily entry sheet. You choose their name. Let's go all the way down to almost the bottom because I'm going to show you what happens when you need to add rows to this. Well, let's just assume that we're going to start recording information for every day for the first however many days, okay? And, let's assume that we just do 8 hours a day, whatever, on all these days with no PTO hours used. You can just start entering in all this information. You don't even have to do a time in, time out. You can just type in hours, or you can put times in and times out over here, and it'll calculate what the hours are for you. And then you can paste them in the right place. You can also pay people by projects. That's what these project types are for. And there's a thing over here to the right to list what you pay per project if they get paid on a per project basis instead of an hourly basis on the day. You can basically do anything, okay, with all that there. But how do you add rows to this? That's a question I was asked recently. Well, these are all formulas, and basically you just need to grab them like that and pull them down. And you don't even need to pull them down. You could just do Control D when you highlight over them. That would work as well, and then go down. So I've highlighted. Now I'm holding down the Shift and the down button. I'm just going down, and then I press Control D, and that works as well. Anyway, you pull those formulas down as it opens up more area. You can't just add to a blank row. You have to pull all these formulas down. And that's all you need to do, and you can have as many records as you want. In theory, you can have hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of records, even in one sheet. Millions is going to be really slow, but hundreds of thousands does work. So you enter in your daily information like that, and then you go to the pay period record sheet. And the pay period record sheet will show you information that it cares about. It says, does this person have any additional tax withheld? Every check that they ask you to withhold, you put that here. Do they have any additional state withheld? What were their regular hours? These are their regular hours that just automatically came over from the daily entry sheet where we put them. See, if we start adding hours in different spots, if we start adding PTO hours and doing all kinds of stuff, you will see that hours will change everywhere. Our overtime, our PTO, and hours and such will start to be automatically calculated and flow through here. It wants to know what the hourly rate is of the person, right? What are they getting paid? That's what goes over here. It showed up in red because it was blank and it knew that there were hours for this period, so it wanted a rate. Just put in whatever rate you want. Put in any bonus amount right here if you pay a person a bonus. This thing is totally flexible on which pay periods and dates you're working with by changing it in the matrix. We're on a weekly pay schedule right now, but this is totally dynamic and you can change this. I've done an extensive video about how to do that. It's complicated, but not that complicated, and it works really well. So once you do that, you have other things like withholdings, like 401k, like insurance, all kinds of things that are added in here. And also any supplemental taxes that I don't know about yet, this is where we will program them, because this otherwise has a tremendous amount of information. It's got, when you keep scrolling to the right here, there are literally, I think there are hundreds of columns. There must be. With all the states' tax rates current for 2022, at least as current as I could have made them a few months ago, and I keep checking them. So they should be current for 2022 in most cases. And any variances should be slight as we constantly test this. But yeah, we're up to LQ, however many columns LQ is. you can check by unhiding up here. Anytime you do any edits to the file, or anytime I do any edits, looks like we have 326 columns worth of formulas. Fascinating. Fascinating amount of calculation just to figure out what your tax is in any given state in the United States. But that is pretty cool. So now you've entered in pretty much everything for one employee for a few pay periods, right? Well, what does that result in? It results in not Billy Gates. It results in the new employee and whatever time period you want to look at. It results in pay stubs that look like this. It results in pay stubs you can get rid of stuff that you never use, like California ETT tax doesn't apply if your employee is never in California. Oregon taxes don't apply. You can literally just delete these right off in most instances. And I'm not going to do that because I want to leave them for the main file in case you are in a state that uses them. But you can do that, and you have a pay stub. You've got more than a pay stub. You've got a report. You've got a report that you can look at by quarter, by month. In order to look at just 1 month, you need to remove the quarter or clear contents on the quarter. Then you can look at just a month. Or you could look at just a pay period. It shows up like that. And it gives you your totals for your 941, which is what you owe, and the amount of withholding, federal, and Social Security and Medicare. And everything that goes into the federal tax payment each quarter goes right there, and then a breakdown of everybody goes over here. And you can extend this thing. I can teach you how to extend this thing, or I can extend it for you for as many employees as you need. Hundreds, and this thing will still work. You get to look at your state reports over here just by typing in the state, and you have the same functionality to look at quarter or month or pay period right there. I have done work with agricultural entities and farming, Form 943. This is also functional, and I have other versions of this file that do calculations on hours and paying people based on bushels of things picked and using break time and using things that are applicable to agricultural employers. So there's also that. It's in separate videos, but it's part of the same main file because the tax structure is essentially the same. It's just how you're sifting out those amounts. Then there's the dynamic pivot sheet, which is a whole other video series unto itself. It's how you structure any dynamic reports that you would like to structure. It's pretty awesome, and it just involves you messing around with the field list and all the possible things that you can mess around with and putting them in the proper areas of the pivot table field, and it will do exactly what you want and show you any time period and any value that is calculated in the file, of which you've seen are 326 or whatever already. So that's cool. And I can do more videos about that as people have more complex questions about doing analysis about their payroll tax data. Matrix sheet is for another video for talking about how you change this for any pay period, any frequency, any paycheck date, and how you do that. You have a W-2 sheet where it should have all the totals that you need for the W-2 information. This can get a little fuzzy when you have super complicated withholdings or different types of withholdings or different types of employer pass-through compensation, as these things can be dynamic. So there is complexity that still needs to be added to this. However, it is functional for everything shown in the file currently and works. So it'll give you what needs to go in your W-2s, which need to be uploaded and submitted every year before the end of January of the subsequent year. And then we have 1099 NEC data is for non-employee contractors and stuff. This is a newer thing, but it's in here in case you want it. And also I added a 1099 miscellaneous sheet also for different types of compensation that's not employee and payroll based. But anyway, point is this thing is so dynamic and fluid that anytime I get a request from anyone around the country doing anything, while it might not have perfectly covered the business perfectly in its template form, it's very easy to adjust to get it working perfectly for whatever your situation is. And I will continue to expand upon it and make it more functional for everybody so that no matter what your business is, if you're a restaurant handling tips or something, I have the tips area. Tips compensation can be different. There's another form where people are supposed to report their cash tips, all kinds of crazy stuff, and break down. Well, you have an area for it. It gets reported slightly separately if there are issues with it on the 941. there are tips, taxable tips, 5B right here. It's separate compensation because of the way that you don't withhold Social Security and Medicare on the paycheck the same way because of reporting of tips. It can be quite complicated, but this file can handle it. So it's just, there's things for restaurants, for farms, for other types of businesses that are completely unrelated and don't have any of that type of compensation, but it can handle all of that. So I'm happy with how it's working, and I don't think I've run into anyone who has complained that it couldn't do what they needed it to do throughout the year. For the most part, I think that is a true statement. So it's been functional and continue to make it more functional. And if you have questions or comments or want to make this thing better and new things to add, then by all means, let me know and we'll do that. All right, so good luck. Payroll should be easy, so make it so.